Up here would be if you were to assign a point control or a corridor reference. Okay, so the default condition will be turned off, and then the turning on or displaying of the turn lane will only be triggered if there is a point control or a corridor reference assigned. Okay, so if you look on page 23, I have a graphical example of turn lane turned off and the turn lane turned on. So that's what we're going to do. And add some display rules here to turn off pieces that we don't want to see for the default condition. So once again, we're going to create some null points above the template. Those are going to be used to go out and seek special geometry to widen the template in the corridor. So we'll begin once again by creating a null point. So just left click in the template tool here. We'll say add new component. We'll go to null point. Make sure we're using our dynamic settings. Make sure it's still toggled on down here. For the point name, the dynamic settings toolbox, just key in control dash, other than creating the point itself. So now if you wanted to create points above the top of the template to use just for maybe additional graphics that you want to display in the plan view, like sometimes people will do it for, what was that one guy? The master class, yeah. He would create null points above his template points to do his pavement striping and things. And he'd choose a feature definition, like called striping or channelizing line or something like that. So it would automatically draw in the 2D view just by having this point in the feature definition defined in the template. That's kind of a nice little trick that you can do with these points. Okay, so once you have this control point up here at the top, we're going to go ahead and double click on that. We're going to set the constraints. Actually, wrong point. I don't want to click on that one yet. What is that? Double click on my edge of pavement right. Zoom in and find my edge of pavement right. EOP underscore right. Double click on that one. We're going to change the constraints on that or adjust those. I'm going to change my constraint to make sure that's set for horizontal, and then use the picker here, the picker button, to change the constraint so that it's constrained to the point right above, which is the control dash EOPR. We're going to set that, we're going to hit apply, and we're only doing that so that when we move this point or assign this point as a point control, the edge of pavement down here will also follow where this point goes. Okay, so to illustrate that, I'll select this point. I'll just move it over. Now you can see the edge of pavement follows along with that point. Kind of think of it as like a puppet string. Right? That's how I always talk. I always call these puppet strings when I build these points up here to control other features of the template. So now continuing on, I'm going to go ahead and create a display rule now, so that when this point is collapsed, when it's less than this point over here, it'll turn off all this information. It's only going to show up when I have some type of widening going on, right? So I'm going to double click on my turn lane components here for my top pavement layer. I'm going to create a display rule. So my component properties tool, the display rule option here, I'm going to click on the edit button. We're going to go to the component display conditional expression dialog appears. We'll click on the add button. We're going to create a new display rule. I'm going to call this turn lane on, underscore right, that's for our name. We're gonna set the type to horizontal, and we wanna compare the distance between the edge of pavement underbar R and the point that's LL underscore R. Okay, so we can use the picker buttons to find those 2 points or pick those 2 points. So for the between option, we use the picker button here. I'm going to select the EOP underbar R point. And for the AND point, use the picker button and select the LL underbar R point. So we want to compare the horizontal distance between those 2 points. If it's greater than 0, then we want it to display. So we add that display rule to the dialog. It'll show up in the bottom portion of the dialog here. And we go to the top area here with a conditional expression. Select that display rule. Click on the little equal sign button here to verify the result is true. Means it will be displayed. And currently that test is being evaluated as greater than 0, so we'll click OK. And then we'll go ahead and hit apply. And close the dialog box. Okay, so right now it's being displayed because the horizontal difference between this point and this point is greater than 0. Now if this point moves back towards the center line, you're going to see all that stuff disappear, right? So that's the display rule in effect. It's at this location horizontally. Everything's turned off. Whenever we initiate the widening, either through a point control or a match line corridor reference, then it would automatically widen out from this point outwards. Okay? So now, let's go ahead and set the default condition for the template, because we want it to be turned off by default. We don't want this to be displayed when we drop this template into our corridor. So we need to adjust the constraints of this point. So right now it looks like it's setting it 30-foot offset from the center line. So we want to align this so that it's just at a standard pavement lane width here. It's like 18 feet. We're going to constrain it to this left underbar right point there. So I'm going to double click on this point, and we'll set the horizontal and vertical feature constraints for this point. So here in the point properties tool down in the bottom portion for constraint 1 and 2, straight 1 we'll make horizontal, and then for our parent point we'll use the picker, select the L underbar R, and then that value, we're going to set that to 0, so we want to relax that lane down to just a 0 width. I'm also going to add in a parametric label here, so if you want to widen out the pavement utilizing a parametric constraint rather than using a point control or some other means, I'm just going to create a label here called turn lane width underbar R. And then for our horizontal feature constraint, we want to make sure we set that, because we may want to utilize a corridor reference that goes out and seeks the edge of pavement. So I'm going to go down here into my linear folder, go under pavement, go under road edge of pavement, for my feature definition, and for my range, we'll set that at 100. My constraint 2 is going to be a vertical constraint, so we'll select vertical. For my parent point, use the picker button and select the center line. And for the value, you can just leave that set for 3. And just hit apply to create that new constraint. So it should look something like this. Constraint. Once you have the constraints set, all the properties are fine. Go ahead and hit apply. And then close the point properties dialog. You'll notice it moves the point back to that location, that offset location. and then all of our components turn off. So this is the default condition that you want when you go to place this template. You're going to drop it on your corridor right before the pavement were to widen, and then if you were to assign a point control or a corridor reference, however you want to widen your pavement, because you have a couple different ways to do that, then this point here would widen out to that location horizontally, and it would activate that display rule to turn on those additional template components. So I'm going to go ahead and save this template. I'm going to close the Create Template tool. We'll go and test it in our corridor. So you can see here, if I zoom in to the 2D plan view, you can see we have the right turn lane geometry has been defined. It's a complex element there, or an alignment called EOP _R _ turn lane. So that represents our turn lane or widening in this area. And if you zoom into the 3D model, you'll see we don't have any information that's been modeled up there yet. So what we're going to do is create a brand new template drop with this template that we just created. So we'll go to our corridor tools here. So go to corridor, create, and we're going to select new template drop. I'm going to locate my corridor. Select it. Go over here. And then when the template prompt comes up to select the template library or the template that you want to use, I'm going to use the Alt key on my keyboard. So press Alt, and then use the down arrow on your keyboard, and that will enable you to browse the template library. So the Pick Template window will come up, and you can pick the 2-lane plus turn lane plus AUX lane dash right urban template. Once you pick that, just follow the prompts or click through the prompts. So I'm going to left click. My start station is going to key in 8400. Press enter on my keyboard to lock in the value. I'm going to left click again. Ending station is going to key in 9100. Press enter on my keyboard to lock in the value. I'll left click. My interval, I'm going to use 25. If you want to use something smaller, feel free to do that. I'll left click to accept that value. I'm going to go ahead and add that template drop in. So you see the default condition, just like in Don's example earlier. You don't have the turn lane being displayed just yet. So to make the turn lane display, we can simply do 2 or 3 different techniques here. We could utilize just simply adding a corridor reference to widen the pavement in this area. We could do a point control. We could also do a parametric constraint. So we have 3 ways that we could actually widen this particular section if we wanted to. Just a matter of personal preference on which one you want to choose. I'm going to choose to use a corridor reference because I already have a graphic element drawn over here in my file. And just going to assign it as a corridor reference to my corridor, and that point in the templates is going to go and seek it and widen my pavement for me. So I'm going to go up to my corridor tools here. We'll go over to corridor references. We'll say add corridor reference. We'll locate our corridor and select it. Locate our turn lane element there. There's the geometry that we got. Select that. Right click. And then now the full template gets widened out with the rest of the grading. So that's pretty much how it's done. Just a matter of creating some null points, testing their locations in relation to other points within inside of the template, and then creating a display rule to tell it which parts of the components to turn off in the template.